until someone kind of says, oh, that's actually quite interesting. It's kind of like, well, that's just the everyday.
I know it is, and it's sometimes really nice to stop and reflect on the journey, because I think you chip away at things and you get to a point where you're like, oh, what's next? But actually having the opportunity to look back and think about what that looks like and the lessons along the way and how you got to where you are it's nice to do occasionally. It doesn't happen very often, so thank you for that opportunity.
Most welcome. We do need the reflection, I think. Just a bit of pride feeling for the most part, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just reflect, I've actually done a decent job.
Yeah, and celebrate. I think we too quickly, you achieve things and you don't actually acknowledge and celebrate what it took to get there. And I talk about that with my team all the time. It's like, okay, we launch a big campaign and it's like, okay, what's next? Just off, rather than actually acknowledging, we put a lot of time and effort into that and it was a really, really huge success. Well done. Yeah. Just take a minute. So, yeah. It's
always what's on the next horizon.
It is, isn't it?
It's just go. Need to pause.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I love most about your story is you've seen marketing from all different facets. Yeah. And this is a conversation about marketing, but it does go broader into business and we can touch on different aspects of that. But having the 360 means that you can address so many different more things, which I think is a pretty special thing. So with your experience in marketing from the client side, the agency side, and now you're at Toorak College and you're shaping future leaders. Yeah. So when you zoom out and you look at what you've done in the macro, what do you believe marketing is responsible for in amongst society and shaping society? Do you think there's a role there?
Absolutely. It's a really good question. And I think Steve Jobs probably said it best when he said the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. And that's really what marketing is. It's the ability to tell stories in a compelling and engaging way that connects with people. And if I think about, some big brands that have done it really well, like, Nike, Just Do It, Netflix and Chill, like they've actually created cultural movements off the back of building their brands. And I was actually looking into the Airbnb story the other day too, which, they've essentially got people to trust in strangers, and they've completely reframed this idea of couch surfing and commoditized it, which I thought was, it's really, really clever. But they did that through the power of storytelling and reframing this idea of accommodation as an experience and a more broad kind of, I guess, travel idea. So I think at scale, and if you do zoom out, marketing can really be responsible for shaping our culture globally, which is exciting. And it's not often you really think about it like that. But
no, it's a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And that Airbnb one's a great example. And to be honest, I haven't thought of it in that context before. It's like, we've actually removed that ambiguity of you can just... well, not call, but you just book in online to just go and stay at someone's house. Stranger's house. You got no knowledge of who they are, what they do, anything like that. And you just rock up. They give you the key. Yep, here you go. Here's the lockbox number. Go through, stay your night, and off you go. I mean,
and it's that trust building, which it's not something you normally do. Is just walk into a stranger's house and feel comfortable making a home or staying there. But I think Airbnb was able to, through their platform and through some compelling storytelling, make that something that everyone felt really comfortable doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So much of marketing is changing behavioural patterns when you're trying to do it from a sales perspective. It's change someone's behaviour.
Yeah.
But really, we're talking that example there, Airbnb, Nike, as you touched on. It's doing that behavioural change, but on a global scale.
Global scale, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, fascinating. So I'm curious, you're in education now at Toorak College, but before that, you were heavily in the construction and the property industries. Yes. So how did that kind of go into your kind of horizon, and then what was the transition back to education?
Yeah, really good question. I had my own consulting business in the property and construction industry for a couple of years, and I actually wasn't looking for a job at all at the time. I had two young girls, and one of them had just started at Toorak College in their ELC there. And so through the LinkedIn algorithm, I was on there one day just pottering around, and this job popped up for, it was head of marketing and brand, I think, at the time, which has obviously evolved over the years. But it piqued my interest, and I thought, I'll just throw my hat in the ring. Again, wasn't really necessarily thinking about a change away and moving away from running my own business, but decided to go and meet the principal and go for the interview, and ended up getting offered the job. And when I walked away from it, there was two things. There was one thing going, how cool is this to be able to go back to where my journey started? So I actually went to Toorak College, so I'm a Collegian, and connect with something that, had a really, really unique purpose in the ability to, create change in the futures for young women. My daughter was there at the time too, so I knew what a fabulous school it was. And then meeting Christy as well, she's really a very impressive leader. So having the opportunity to work for and underneath her was something that I just couldn't pass up either. So I said yes, and the rest is history.
That's brilliant. So we talk about 360-degree perspective on marketing. You've really got the 360-degree perspective on Toorak as well.
Absolutely. So past student, parent and staff member. So tick all the three boxes there. But I think that's actually really allowed me to, I guess, have different lenses on it from a marketing perspective and trying to weave all those different experiences into how we create compelling campaigns and being able to use alumni and stories and being able to talk to the parent side of things as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You would see so much different things pop up depending on what position you are in and what role, what hat you've got on at the time.
Yes.
When you first came into that role, you were there as a parent, now you're in there as a staff member.
Yes.
Did you have any perspectives from when you were there as a student to then coming in as a staff member that kind of shaped your thinking initially in that role, or in terms of potential directions you could take it?
Not really, actually. I think I came in with a really fresh mindset. I'd not worked in education before, so my background was very much agency side and then had worked more in the tech space and the construction space, so very, very different industries. But I think the advantage of that was coming in with a completely new perspective on marketing, and perhaps coming in with some different ideas and creative expression on how we can communicate that offering of education. And sometimes it's running a fine balance between having a corporate hat on and thinking like a corporate in a business, and then still acknowledging that our primary service is other students and is education. So getting that balance right in the beginning was probably a bit challenging. But I think what we've now seen is that we've been able to build a really strong brand that tries to look at creative campaigns a little differently, and bring some of those learnings in from a corporate environment to be able to create compelling stories too.
Yeah. Your daughter's still at Toorak?
They are, yes. So they're in grade 3 and grade 1 this year.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So from a pride perspective as a parent, how does it make you feel knowing that you're in a position at Toorak where you're able to not only influence your child's future as a parent, but then also from a strategic perspective, you can kind of shape directions a little bit as well?
Yes, and I think, look, pride's an interesting one, isn't it? Because when I think of that word, I feel like it almost implies some ownership over their achievements, whereas perhaps I'd rephrase it as more of a privilege that I get to be involved in some small part in young women's futures. And I think, they're already amazing individuals. They're confident, they're capable. It's about us then providing that opportunity to really support that, and support their growth and help them step into that and to see what is available in the world. But equally, I think we're responsible for making sure, that world's ready for them, and they are respected in the same way as, men as well. So I think, we're in a really unique position to be able to have a lot of influence. But I think really, they're magical already. It's just about giving them that opportunity to show that magic to everybody else.
Yeah. When we were speaking before this episode, you touched on an interesting stat that I hadn't come across at the time, and that was that of most of the large ASX listed companies in Australia, a lot of them are starting to go backwards on their balance between women and men in leadership roles. Yeah. And I was kind of blown away by that, because we've been told this narrative, whether by statistics or otherwise, that women in leadership roles is increasing across so many different industries. And I think for the most part it probably is. But I was shocked by that statistic that you brought up there. It's interesting.
And I think in visible leadership, like in boards, absolutely. Like I think we're pretty much there in terms of almost in gender equality across most industries. They've done a really good job at that. I think it's that next level down. So the executive group and the CEOs that are either stagnant or have started to slip backwards a little bit.
Right.
So I don't think it's necessarily, I think the intent's been there. I think we've lost a bit of momentum and possibly seen a bit of a bottleneck in terms of how we're developing those upcoming leaders. And so I think there's a bit of a disconnect there. And not for, I think the efforts and, as I said, the intent is good. It's just probably looking at some of the challenges that still exist in that middle leadership to try and elevate them up to that next level. But I mean, it's positive that we are seeing it at a board level.
Definitely.
It's then encouraging, how do we get that next level down to really see that representation?
So from a female-only school perspective, how do you empower your students to think big and say, look, you can achieve executive level leadership roles, you can do all these different jobs that are traditionally been male jobs because the opportunities are there for you now? How do you empower the women to do that?
I think there's a lot of things we do, and I think, coming back to that saying you can't be what you can't see, I think being able to profile some of our alumni who are doing great things in really interesting spaces is important, and being able to connect them to the students. So, we have we invite them in to do talks to both junior school and senior school. We had Jen Watt in recently, who obviously is CEO of North Melbourne, who's done amazing things in sport, which is, not a traditionally, a field that females have necessarily been highlighted in, particularly in a leadership perspective. So having that connection to our alumni is really important so that the students can actually see what's possible and imagine themselves doing those roles and those jobs. We also have a really robust corporate partnerships program. So we actually bring industry into the classroom. We have great partnerships with NAB, Downer, Seymour White, so in the construction and engineering spaces, and also Net Focus IT, a local partner of ours, so in the tech space.
Team, aren't they?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and they've all, we had one last year too, IMRA, who are, robotic surgery business. So some businesses that are doing amazing things across really exciting spaces, and mainly in that STEM space where we've spent a lot of time trying to increase engagement in the school. And so they've developed curriculum units from year 7 all the way through to year 10 and 11 to try and, expose our students to what real life skills in these industries look like. We also have cadetships. So we have a cadetship with Downer and Seymour White, who offer a recent Year 12 graduate a position in their business while they're studying their university degree. And that's really been game-changing as well. So I think we're on to possibly our 5th year of that.
Brilliant.
Cadetship, and always looking for new partners too, to be able to, give them that next step. So, our job's done in terms of, the high school and the year 12, and they've done their BCE, but how are we launching and bridging that gap with industry, apart from obviously university, but getting them in the door in those corporate businesses early?
Yeah, because that's such a pivotal time period, isn't it, where they finish year 12 or they finish 10, 11, and then how do we get to that next step there? It's off you go to uni, it's off you do an apprenticeship or whatever it may be. But once you've done that initial first step, you still have to make the big jump into the actual industry, which is the tough part.
It's really tough. And I think the earlier on they get exposed to what that industry actually looks like on a day-to-day basis, the more successful they'll be in the transition, because I'm sure, I don't know if you went to uni, but what you learn at uni is great, but it's completely different when you put it into context of a working environment. So I think being able to have those in partnership, working simultaneously together is really strong. And also we've seen, the students then, be more successful in finding something that really suits them and their passions too.
Yeah. What would you say some of the challenges that you face as a school within the time that you've been in the role that are tough to overcome in that context around getting women into roles within industry?
I think there's preconceived ideas is the biggest one. So I think being able to market something like the tech industry to them from an angle that, it's not necessarily a coder sitting behind a computer that's, typing in code all day. There's such a plethora of career options within the industry, and same as construction. So I would never have thought to have gone into construction when I was at school. I just thought of it as building and wearing a hard hat and, having a trade. Whereas now, having worked in the industry in a business development capacity, in a marketing capacity, in a client relationship capacity, opening my eyes to the other options. I think that's really important. So that's probably our biggest job, and we lean on our partners a lot for that, and getting in front of them early too. So starting to develop that curiosity to want to know more about what a career in that industry looks like.
Sometimes just highlighting the possible opportunities is just such a big pivotal step in all of that. I get ads all the time for the ADF.
Oh, really?
Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, it's everywhere. So they've obviously found my little demographic amongst their list, and they said, like, we're going to target there. I'm not interested at the moment.
There's someone listening to that. Okay, take it off your Spotify.
But what I think they do a great job of within their advertising is showing that there's roles that are non-military.
Absolutely.
Because there is that preconceived notion that you go to the ADF, it's just fighting, and out you go to all the different war fronts. And it's like, well, no, because there's all these other roles behind it.
Absolutely.
And they do a great job of showcasing that in their ads. And obviously that's what I picked up in my ears all these times that I've on Spotify all the time. I've heard it. But I think that's exactly what you're doing in a context there as well at Toorak, is you're showing that there's these opportunities available that you may not think are there. Tech, it's not just doing coding on a computer all day. There's other options. Yeah. And opening people's ideas and minds to those alternative pathways is powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, being in a cadetship is one of the most valuable things, that you get exposed to a lot of different areas of the business. So you might go into Downer, for example, which is, traditionally an engineering services firm, but you might spend time in the project management team where you're out, building roads. You might be spending time with the research team, which is looking at the science behind it, or you could be with the legal team, seeing how corporate counsel works in those big businesses. So I think being able to communicate that is really important, and as you said, it just opens their eyes up to all the different options.
Yeah. So you've been client side,
Yes.
You've been agency side.
Yes.
That's a great dynamic from a marketing perspective. I love that. I've only been agency side. That's
Okay.
the only experience I've had is with Fix on Media.
Yep.
So that's my perspective. As someone that's been on both sides, what are the pros and cons of both?
They're very different. So I think agency side, as you will well know, very fast paced. You're working with a different client every day. So I think that pressure to come up with new and creative ideas is really exciting, and having the creative freedom to reimagine a different brand every day. I think having that diversity is something that I miss. I really, really loved that aspect of agency life. But I think what you don't get from the agency side of things is you don't see the longer term impact of a campaign or an idea that you've created. The client likes it, off it goes out into the universe, and you see it on TV. And I don't think there's any long term buy-in to actually see what that's meant from a commercial perspective, what it's meant from a customer retention perspective, or longer term impacts on the business. So whilst it's exciting and diverse, I think there's a bit of that disconnect, or a bit removed, I guess, from the end outcome. Working client side, you're very much invested in one brand, which it may not be as creative. It may not have as much creative freedom. Obviously, you can build new campaigns all the time, but basically you're working and invested in that one brand. So there's a sense of loyalty that comes along with that, I think, as well. But there's something really nice that you can see how that brand's built over time, and then being able to see the impact of that brand building from a commercial perspective or a business success perspective, I think is really valuable, and something that's really, really rewarding. So, yeah, I think both have their pros and cons, and they're very different, but I've learnt different things from both experiences.
It would be really empowering to be able to say, we worked on this piece, and you can see that commercial impact and the growth within the business over time.
Absolutely.
From being on the client side of it, that would be fascinating.
Yeah, and I think having that opportunity to continue to challenge and grow over time and seeing how one brand has developed and being able to have some really nice metrics to measure that as well, I think is really important.
And I suppose from a agency perspective, it's definitely more difficult to have that investment over the long term in terms of being able to see that growth come through. But probably just depends a little bit on the client dynamic as well. So I think about us, we've been around 4 years. We've had some clients that we've been with from pretty much day one that we're still with 4 years later.
Yeah.
Some have got 3 years, some have got 2-year relationships going and ongoing still. And I look at those clients and I think about all the work that we've done for them over that time period. And some of them we work a bit more closely with compared to others. And the ones that we've worked more closely with, I can see the commercial return for them.
Absolutely.
And that does fill you with a lot of pride, and you're very proud of those efforts that your team have put in to achieve that for the client.
Yeah,
But that's because you have such a close relationship with them.
And it's been ongoing, right?
And it's
too.
ongoing.
So it's, yeah.
Whereas if you kind of step back and it's kind of like, oh, little project here, little project there, but the relationship's still there over time, there's not as much investment. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely,
like
yeah.
You still are proud of the growth that the client has, and you know that in some capacity you've been able to help 5% here, 5% there, but because you're not as close as what you are with if you're working with them, every day, a couple of days a week, whatever it is, there's not that connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess if you've got a client for over 4 or 5 years, you'd probably feel like you're a part of the team and part of their business and have a vested interest in their success for numerous reasons. And I feel the same. I think, yeah, with smaller projects, they can be really exciting and they can be fast paced and you can have great outcomes. But then they're done and it's like, oh, okay, well, I wonder what happened to that, or what was next for them. So, I think they're both very different environments. But if you've got a really good client base as long term, I think agency can feel like that, like an in-house kind of marketing job too, when you're working with someone over a long period of time.
So Toorak then, what are some campaigns that you've been really proud of in the time that you've been there?
Oh, that's a really good question. I knew you were going to ask me that one. One we've got at the moment I really like because it's connecting current students to our alumni audience, and it's the tagline is ready for tomorrow, and it came from the idea that we have these students for a really small amount of time, but it's a really important amount of time. And so how are we helping shape the people that they're going to become in the world? And what's our responsibility to make sure that they leave Toorak as confident and capable and, wanting to take risks and address challenges and do something, with passion. So, the campaign we've got at the moment, there's 3 separate videos and it's all around this idea that, girls who are inspired are women who ignite change. So it's connecting what happens when you're a child to then what that leads you into in your future. And I think it's been really special because we've used real alumni stories and being able to, I think, have an authentic voice in that these are real. They're real life stories, and all 3 of them could speak to how something they learnt at Toorak then either opened a door or gave them the confidence that they needed to take a risk, or has somehow influenced where they've ended up in their career for the time being. It's never over. We're learning all the time. And so I think there's something special about that, because it's about what happens now is not just creating a great space for students to have a wonderful time at school. It's what that means for their future.
Yeah, it's really powerful, those stories. And I always love seeing different schools, universities as well, bring those 2 together, the student and the alumni, and their stories and how one impacted the other. Yeah. It's really powerful storytelling tool.
Yeah, I think so, because I think at the end of the day, it's proof. It's proof that what we're doing is making a difference, so I really like that. And I also think it's nice if we look at these alumni stories and then show them back to the students. Again, it's that reinforcement of, oh wow, I can do that too. I can be that too. So showing them the possibilities of career options, I think is a really good byproduct of this one.
How does that make students feel? Is that something you've had feedback on at any given time?
We haven't, but it's a really good idea. I'm going to go and get some. I think, when we have alumni come in, the students love it. Like, I think they love being able to see what's possible, and having that connection to someone that was at the same school that they're currently at is a really nice one. I think the challenge can sometimes be sometimes it's too far out of their mind in terms of, having a year sixer talking to someone in their late 30s who's running a successful marketing agency. I think that gap can sometimes be too wide. I think they learn a lot. I think they ask really good questions, but we're trying to look at different ways to, I guess, create great content and bring people in at the right moments with the right type of messaging. But yeah, it's a good idea to get some feedback on our new campaign and see how it's made them feel, or if they've learned anything from it too.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear that perspective and to see how it makes them feel, because then I guess that's a bit of market feedback for you as well. It's okay, this is kind of a good direction for us to go in, or not so much.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Here's a question for you, and I didn't kind of prompt you or prepare you with this one, but it just came to mind as you were talking about the alumni side of things. So I was speaking probably maybe 4 months ago with an individual who's an alumni of one of the APS schools.
Yep.
And he still has a kind of like a advisory board kind of position at one of these schools. Mm-hmm. And he was saying to me, one of the things he loves most about the APS schools, and it goes to AGS and AGSV and private schools in general, is that they have this magnificent history as a school, hundreds of years in some cases, right? He says he loves that because there's the tradition element of it, there's the historical element of it, it's great. But he said to me, he also finds that to be one of the worst things about them in some cases.
Interesting.
Because they're so ingrained in this identity that they've built up over 100, 150, 200 years, that it's really hard to change that status quo. So how do you view that for Toorak, which is a school that's been around for quite a long time?
Over 150 years. So last year we celebrated 150 years. So I think one of the oldest girls' schools in Victoria, if not the eldest. And it's really interesting. During that year, I did a lot of research into the history of the school. And Toorak has actually reimagined itself several times. So it started off as an all-boys school. When it first started, it started off as an all-boys school. And then it transitioned to an all-girls school when Elizabeth Tripp became the principal at the time. We were up in Toorak, hence the name, Toorak College, which still gets people confused all the time. Then they did a big sea change and moved down to Mount Eliza. So I think we're a school that's always done something that's been unexpected. So I think we probably are less tied to this idea of this is always the way we've been. And so I think we've actually done a really good job of adapting to the needs at any given moment of what's happening in society and what the school has needed. And to be able to do that, we've had really strong supporters along the way. We couldn't have done it by ourselves. And I think something that's really nice even now is that we've got a really cohesive senior leadership team. We've got a really cohesive board, and I think very supportive of looking at what's next and how we need to not always reimagine but adapt and be a bit flexible and look at what society is like and what it is going to be in the future, so that we continue to maintain relevance and continue to offer a great product and service that is relevant for the time that we're in.
Yeah. It's a big thing. We talk about behavioural change, right? It's a monumental task to try and change an identity of a 150-year-old business at the end of the day, right? But I would definitely agree. From what I've seen of Toorak I've been down in this way for 20 years, right? In that time, I can definitely identify that you've changed things at Toorak, and that's through different campaigns. It's through the way things have gone about. I think that Toorak are one of the good examples of schools that have been able to adapt and pivot where required.
I think so. And I think that's come down to leadership too. I think, a lot of that comes from the top. It's very hard to inflict change if there's not belief from the people in those senior positions. And so I think we've been really fortunate, particularly in recent times, to have, a principal that's been very, I guess, motivated to do things differently, to make sure that we're consistently improving, and we have this continuous learning. I think it's Kaizen, and in Japan they refer to it all the time. It's like, how do we continue to be better? And this continuous improvement, which you have to be in order to survive, I think. And look, we've tried different things. We were all girls, and we had boys, and then we didn't have boys, and then we had boys only up to a certain year, and now we're going back to, I guess, an all-girls approach from prep to 12. We've still got our co-ed ELC. So we have tried different things along the way, and I think we've now settled into what we're really good at, and something that we really believe in, which is that all-girls education. And we're just about to do our next strategic plan for the next 5 years, actually. So we've got a big leadership day happening tomorrow to look at more globally what the trends are, and how we can make sure that we're at the forefront of that, and that we're addressing those, I guess, needs that our students are going to be, the future workforce in the next 20, 30 years. So looking at what those global trends look like, and how are we then bringing that back to the classroom now to make sure that our students are prepared for what we're going to see globally.
You touched on leadership. It's pretty hard to touch on leadership and not talk about Christy.
I know, isn't it?
What an amazing woman.
She's amazing. She is. How's
it
phenomenal.
like working with her day to day?
Oh, she's just so dynamic. She's she brings so much energy into the school, and she just has such a passion for what she does, which is infectious. You can't help but be inspired by her. And hearing, every time I hear her speak, I pick up a new little bit of knowledge. But I think that has been fundamental in the school's success over the last few years, is really been her leadership. She has a genuine passion for education, but particularly for young women, and I think that comes across in every interaction you have with her. She knows every student by name. She's out there training aerobics at 7 o'clock, 2-3 mornings a week, and then coming in and doing her day job as principal. So I think she's really invested in the community, and in the student body. And I think that makes a huge difference to the feel of a school, and as I said, how successful it has been, because she is a really dynamic leader, and genuinely cares, which I think is one of the most important attributes.
Yeah, it's funny. People talk about sporting organisations and schools as kind of this separate identity, but at the end of the day, they're all businesses. Yeah. And you look at the best businesses that have ever existed, and the top leadership, they're always in the pits at the bottom, right? Like, all hands on deck. They're trying to help in any way they possibly can. And you talk about the aerobics example there with Christy. That's a great example of that. I recall seeing a post that she put up, might have been towards the start of the school year this year, and she was out doing the lollipop, because the lollipop people didn't turn up for the day. Yeah. And I thought, this is the leader of the school down in the dirt, essentially, if you phrase it that way, right? Getting the hands dirty. And knowing everyone by name, that is an incredible recall at a school. How many principals
We're now over 1,000 students.
Over 1,000 students, and knows everyone by name. And that is insane.
I know.
It's brilliant.
But I think that's something quite unique, and I think it comes back to that authenticity that she really genuinely believes and loves what she does. And I think, as you said, she's the one putting out chairs at a production, and doing the lollipop lady I shouldn't say lollipop person on the day that there wasn't one. And I think that what makes students and the community be able to connect to her too. Even though some of the ELC students like to think she's the queen in the castle, because we're in this big old building. It's like, Mrs. Kendall's the queen in the castle. But she's a queen that very much gets involved in the day-to-day running as well. So
she's an amazing woman. She's doing great things for the women of the peninsula.
She is, absolutely. Yeah. She is.
So let's talk a bit more around the marketing side of things, because being a school, you've got a few different perspectives that you're looking at. And Toorak, you've also got the international perspective as well. Yeah. So you're looking to attract students from overseas. Mm-hmm. You're also needing to attract parents locally in the catchment area to come to Toorak. Yeah. And then you've also needing to kind of at the same time show the students, be like, hey, this is actually a good school for you. At the end of the day, the parents are the ones making the decisions, but if you can kind of get the kid roped in a little bit, You know?
And we're seeing that shift, particularly in years 8, or even year 7 and above. The students are having a lot more of a voice in where they want to go to school. So we can get the parents across the line, but if it's not somewhere they want to go because their friends from primary school are not going, or they want a co-ed education or whatever it is, it's actually really hard to get the family on board. So I think we've taken an approach even more so recently to really market to the students, and some recent girls that came in who'd done their own research, and they'd come prepared. They'd looked at the website, they'd checked out this is the students, all the social media posts, and they went to their parents and said, this is the school that I want to go to.
There you go.
So I think it's really shifting, and because they have access now to all the digital environments and print as well, and outdoor media, they're exposed to it all, so they're having a lot more ownership of this decision making in their education, which is interesting because you obviously need to have campaigns that speak to everybody, and we do different campaigns for different reasons and to target different audiences as well. But I think more broadly we're trying to land on ideas that speak to everybody, like the whole stakeholder base, because it's not just the parents anymore. It's absolutely the students have a huge voice in where they want to end up going to school.
I think of the supermarket cereal aisle, how they have the adult cereal up the top and then they have the kids one down the bottom with the little cartoon character's eyes looking down. It's like, I'm pretty hungry, I'm pretty yummy, you come and get me, and then the kids, I want that one. Right? It's kind of like the same dynamic where you've got a little bit going here towards the parents, look at this, we're a great school, and it's like, hey kids, like this is a great school for you as well.
This is the fun stuff too, yeah. And that messaging is definitely going to be different, but I think what a student's looking for is, that's where all, the co-curricular stuff comes in, and the activities, and the absolutely still the academic and the personal growth and wellbeing side of things. But it's, what does it feel like to be a student at that school? So being able to share more student stories and authentic voices of what it's like to be, a day in the life of a Toorak student, and, making sure that equally the parents get exposed to that, but they see some more of the data behind it too, in terms of, what is our wellbeing program like, and academic growth program like, and how we support individual learning in students as well now, which is becoming more and more important. So I think there's different messaging. There's definitely crossover there, but you can tell them in very compelling and creative ways, which is exciting.
And internationally, how does that all come together? That's a whole different ball game.
And we have a boarding house, so we have nearly 70 students on site that live at school, and we participate in a lot of the international expos, so mainly through AAS, but the messaging is slightly different for our international audience. I would say, the academic pace is probably one of the most important factors in the pathways. So coming back to that proof point of our alumni, where is my daughter going to go after Toorak? Because, obviously they often come to us a little bit later in their education journey. So perhaps year 8, year 9, year 10s, they're really interested in what their child is going to get in those later years, and then what that means for their future. So being able to sell in, that corporate partnerships piece is really important, but also the wellbeing. So, often they're sending their child thousands of miles away. So, wanting to know that they're safe and well looked after, and, being exposed to different cultures and things like that within our community is really important to them as well.
So besides the alumni piece and being able to showcase where women have gone after Toorak, what kind of other avenues can you show internationally to say, hey, we're one of the top schools that you need to send your daughter to if you're looking for a high quality international education?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes back to, a lot of data around what university offers come out. So Melbourne University and Monash University are huge internationally, and it's very much a sense of pride for families to be able to say that their daughter got accepted to one of the top universities in Australia. So we have really strong partnerships with them, and most of our offers come from Monash University each year. So that's kind of an easier sell.
So it's linking in with the universities to say, we've got a great relationship with this university, and there's a good chance that you come to Toorak, your daughter can go onwards to that university.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think, look, we're in a bit of a different position because we're quite far out of the city. So a lot of those city schools have different offerings in terms of, the closeness to those universities and things. I think the point of difference for us is that Actually a quiet community, and your daughter's really safe down here, and we're right on the beach. Like, the location speaks for itself. A lot of these students have grown up in big cities and they've never even seen a beach before, so I think being able to show that what your child is getting at Toorak is a completely different experience to anything that they would get in their home environment. But I think that support too, we've got on-site counsellors and health services and tutors, so being able to support them in their learning, and having that, we've got a dedicated English language support centre that they learn in, whilst also partaking in mainstream classes. So I think a lot of our offerings are really exciting for international families and are a bit different to some of our competitors too.
You've had this amazing experience agency side, you've jumped client side, you've had this 360 approach, which is great. And with that, you've had a tremendous wealth of experience in marketing roles. So for you, if you were to look back on your very earliest kind of time in marketing versus what you know now, what would you want that younger self, that younger Emma, to know about?
I think one of the biggest things I've learned over time, initially I always wanted to have the answers before I gave anything a go. So I wanted to make sure that everything I did was perfect. Whereas over time I've realised that you don't learn by being the smartest person in the room. You learn by being the dumbest person in the room. And I think giving myself permission to try things before I was ready is probably the greatest gift that I was able to give myself, and where I've grown the most. And they've been the biggest lessons that I've taken in over time. Because I think it's really important to be able to try things and fail at them, which I was not comfortable in doing earlier on in my career at all. I wanted to always make sure I had the right answer, and was making sure that I felt prepared for whatever anyone was going to ask me. So what I've learned is that you don't grow or learn really by playing it safe like that. So saying yes to things that make me really uncomfortable has been a big leap. And I try even now to do one thing that scares me every day, and I've been trying to teach my kids that too, because it's funny when, and it can be the smallest thing, right? It can be calling someone you haven't spoken to in a year. That's scary. Coming on a podcast, that's scary. Making a decision that you might not be quite ready to make, but you have to make one. So I have that mentality all the time now. If I do one thing that scares me every day, and obviously there's a scale of scariness, then I feel like I'm continuing growing and learning, which is the most important thing for me, and continuing to take on more and bigger challenges. And I think when you see your kids growing and coming against some of those barriers that you had when you were younger, and being able to impart some of that knowledge on them is like, oh, yep, okay, I get it now. Like, no, I don't want you to just do things you think you're good at. Go and try something that you think you're not good at. And seeing that fear from them has made me understand myself a little bit better, I think, which has been really interesting.
I love that approach. One scary thing each day.
Yeah.
And then you've also pushed it towards your kids as well, which is fantastic.
Poor things.
But it's a
You're
good
running
way.
cross country.
That's the ultimate scariness.
It's the ultimate scary thing.
But that's a great approach. I've got a client who I was speaking to a few weeks ago, and he said to me that he has started adopting a method with his kids where at the end of the day, or every second day I think it is, they sit together, the young kids similar age to yours.
Yeah.
They sit together before going off to bed, and it's what are you really happy about that's happened over the last few days, and what's something that's got you really bummed down, like you're really upset about it, really frustrated, and just talk about it. And I think that's a similar approach to what you're saying there around just do something scary and give permission to do that.
Yeah.
Because at that young age, it really does just give them the freedom to know that something goes wrong, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And I think that's the biggest thing. We almost build this fear up in our mind of like, oh, if I make a mistake, or if I don't do that well, or if I come last, it's the end of the world. And so I think reframing that as like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Exactly.
Oh, well.
Oh, well, go again.
Go again. Try again the next day. And so sometimes when I'm hearing myself say that to my kids, I've got to remind myself of that too. Like, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? And I read this beautiful thing, James Clear. I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits.
Brilliant book.
Oh, brilliant. And he has this idea around, decisions are like haircuts hats or tattoos, or
Yes.
hats, haircuts or tattoos. You know, there's decisions that are like hats. You try it or not, doesn't really matter. There's haircuts that, you know, might not have been great, but it's going to grow out over time. And then there's the tattoo decisions, which, yeah, okay, if you make a bad one, that's probably going to be permanent. And so I've tried to look at not just my work life, but even my personal life in that way now too. It's like, is this a hat decision or is this a tattoo decision? And then I think that helps alleviate some of that pressure from some of the hats and haircuts decisions to be like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I love that framing. I love it. It goes across every aspect of life.
It does, doesn't it?
Every
Yeah.
aspect. We bring it back to marketing just for a second. How many times, from an agency perspective, particularly, do you speak with clients and they go, oh, we don't really want to do that because it's like, it goes slightly against their kind of direction of focus. And it's like, no, just try it. It's a hat decision.
Hat decision.
If
yeah.
it works, it works. If it doesn't, there's not a big upset about it. It's just, that's fine. We can paper over that, go to the next one.
100%.
Right? But just again, removing that fear of failure and just being open to mucking up, wiping it clean slate and going again.
Yep.
So important.
So important, so important. And I think being able to give everyone else permission to do that too, like giving your team the permission to do that and knowing that if they make a hat and a haircut decision, that's if they make a tattoo decision, maybe not. But I think being able to then delegate and giving them your trust that it's going to be okay, I think is really important. Something I'm still learning as a leader to, you know, some things I want to jump in and be like, oh, I wouldn't really do it that way myself, but it's a hat, so it doesn't really matter. Let them do it. It might not be your way, but it's not wrong. So I think allowing teams to try and fail and do things differently is really, really important too as a leader.
Yeah. And is that a big part of your leadership style amongst other variables, is
It
to really
is
empower
now.
others?
Absolutely. And again, I've probably learnt over time to let go of control a bit, like this idea of controlling versus commanding. Earlier in my leadership career, I was probably a bit more controlling because, again, I just wanted everything to be done, you know, perfectly to get a really good outcome for the team as well. But I realised by doing that, I was robbing them of the chance for them to grow and step up and make mistakes. So I've definitely adapted and tried to step more into a commanding role, which is still, you know, daily practice for me. But yeah, something that I like to think I'm improving on.
So what are some of the other kind of frameworks or habits that you implement in your life on a somewhat regular cadence, similar to the hats, haircuts, tattoos framework there, that empower you and those around you to do better?
I've really started to take some time to not rush into responses or to over-promising on things. So I think giving myself and others permission to just take a breath sometimes, and even the urgent things, it's like you can take 3 breaths before we jump in and try and solve it, or respond to a snarky email about something, or it's just, I think, giving us permission to slow down a little bit. And there's nothing like sometimes just having a good night's sleep and having 24 hours to think about something before you respond. So, you know, that ability to be quite reactive sometimes just happens, and you're responding in the moment to things. But I think being able to take the time, and 24 hours is not a long time, you know, people can wait 24 hours if you let them know that's how long it's going to take to get back to them, and it just completely allows you to look at something from a different perspective, reframe it, and you come in calmer. So that's something else I try and do and encourage my team to do. And also just, I think, make them aware that, you know, we all take great pride in our work, and I have an amazing team who, you know, is really ambitious and really believes and cares about the job that they're doing. You know, we're all here for an awesome purpose at Toorak, but that nothing's more important than your life. So, you know, we're not saving lives. We're not working in an industry where it is imperative that, you know, you've got to be on 24/7 and you can't make any errors. So I think sometimes bringing that context in is really important too.
Yeah. So what's life like at Toorak? It's school holidays now as we record this, and we were speaking before we started recording, almost like a ghost town. You've got all the little dust balls rolling across the walkways, and it's just emptiness.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's very quiet in school holidays. It's quite amazing that one place can change so drastically when you remove the students from the grounds. It's it is. I think the most of the soul that the school's soul comes from having that energy and atmosphere around, and there's nothing better than hearing students laughing down the hallway, and them running to and from their classes, and just seeing school life. And it's actually quite makes me reminisce about my time at school. It's like, oh gosh, what a time to be alive.
Simple times.
Simple times. You're having the best time of your life and you don't even know it probably in the moment. So it's really lovely to have the ebbs and flows though of a school life. There's the quieter periods in the school holidays where you really head down, bum up and are getting as much work done as you can. And then those more lively moments where it's, no day's the same, and you're pivoting from one thing to the other, and you're at an assembly in the morning, and then you're doing marketing strategy in the afternoon, and you have a parent event in the evening. So it's really eclectic, and I love that because it's really diverse, and there's always something different happening.
Yeah, it's so funny when you're in the school years. Everything that's going on around you, thinking it's life or death, and it's like, oh, James over there was being annoying, and like it's just
I didn't get
big
invited to
blow-ups of
someone's
everything.
birthday
It's like,
party.
oh
and
no, it's end of the world, and then you go back in as an adult into the same environment, and you look at it, and you're like, geez, I would love to be part of that right now.
different
It's like,
perspective. I know.
I
know.
So simple, nothing to worry about.
Simple, no. Well, they say bigger kids, bigger adults, bigger problems. But yeah, it's funny. It's perspective, isn't it? And it's actually been quite a gift to come back into the environment and reflect on my time at school. And it was like, wow, I had a ball. So yeah, it's nice to have those reminders.
So let's look a bit to the future now.
Yes.
What kind of skills do you think that those in marketing are going to require over the next 5-10 years, if not a generation, to keep up to date with everything? Because it moves so quickly.
It moves so quickly. And look, I could talk about, all the AI skills and the tech skills, but I think what it comes down to, and I don't think this will ever change, is the ability to tell good stories and tell good stories authentically. Be able to connect with people emotionally. So I think that, collaboration is really important. I think having discernment's really important. I think creative thinking is more important than ever. And you're having the ability to tell good stories in a way that connects still with humans is probably going to be the most important thing.
So from a education perspective, storytelling is about linking in with alumni for the most part, is it? Or is it a greater scope than that?
I think it's much greater than that. But I think from a campaign perspective for the moment, that's a story we are telling and one element of it. But I think there's so many other parts to having, current student voice and even parent voice, what it's like to be a parent of a school and what's important to them. So we're looking at a series of kind of parent interviews and testimonials. And similarly with staff, I think getting to know, from a professional perspective, the teachers and looking at, their expertise and what they bring to I guess, a really important part of a person's life and the long-lasting impact they have too. So I think, schools have so many different stories they can tell and so many different angles they can take. It's almost like we've got a plethora of content to be able to use at any given time. So we're actually really, really lucky. It's very easy, I would say. Very easy.
So many
to sell.
stakeholders. So many stakeholders. You touched on staff stories there, and the thing that instantly came to mind is how many times do you hear of schools, they've got staff that have been there their entire professional career in that one school. They've done 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, working in that school.
Yeah.
Like the stories that they would have would be incredible.
Yeah.
And then not just about them personally and what they've experienced at the school, but they could touch on so many different people that have become alumni and say, I remember when Bob was a mere year 9 student and he was telling me about he wanted to do all this in his life. And look at him now, he's achieved all of this. And it's like, that would be an incredible story.
It is, and we have a few teachers who have been with the school for 20, 30 years, and they're such a valuable part of our fabric, just not even from the stories that they can tell, but I think just how they've seen the school evolve over time too. And and brings such a valued perspective to, I guess, coming back to your point before around how do you continue to evolve while managing it's also important we don't lose that legacy, because sometimes you can evolve and change so much you forget your identity and who you were. So I think, having some staff members that have been there for a long time is really important to bring us back to sometimes why we made decisions in the first place and why we do things a particular way. And just because we could do them differently, should we? So I think always having that discernment and lens on the things that are okay to change and some of the things that are not okay to change and are part of the fabric of the school and why it's so important still for its identity.
Love that. One final question for you before we wrap things up. In terms of the way organisations are structured at the moment, in terms of marketing, you've got this great perspective, as we've touched on, client side, agency side. If you could redesign the way that organisations approach their marketing from a ground up, what would you change first, and why would that be a critical thing to touch on first?
I would love people to think of brand not just as a campaign, but it's a behaviour. And I think it all comes back to building long-term trust and consistently showing up as a brand with the brand values over time. I think some of the mistakes that are made, it's very easy to get attention. It's not easy, it's hard to get attention, but businesses are obsessed with getting, the click-throughs and short-term kind of conversions and perhaps taking their eyes off that longer-term goal of loyalty and trust building, because you don't have to work very hard for clicks and attention if you've got that base and foundation that people align with from a brand perspective. And there's been a long-standing debate about brand versus performance marketing, and Les Benet's spoken to it on several occasions. But I think you can't have performance without brand, and I like to think of it. Someone said this to me ages ago, and it really stuck with me. And I don't think there's a better way to explain it, that brand is really the plumbing and performance is the tap that you turn on when the time's right. You can't turn the tap on if the plumbing's not right. Water's not going to come out. So yeah, that's my take on that. So I'd like to see more brands, I think, invest in that strategy and make sure that brand foundation is really solid.
That's a great analogy.
It's great, isn't it?
Great analogy.
Oh, I love it. I know it's
tap.
not mine. I stole it from someone else, but I think it's a really good way to explain it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Emma, this has been amazing. Learning about Toorak, learning about your story. It is clear that you've got some amazing experiences from your entire journey, and you're bringing this into your role now. And the next generation of students that come through Toorak are going to be so well off because you're bringing all this energy in, and it's going to be amazing to see what happens.
Thank you. No, it's exciting times. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved chatting to you. It's been really good. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.